Okay. I was just going to try to act.
Can you tell me anything about how you came to be here?
So I guess I think Travelling Light is about literally, wanting to travel, wanting to move. I think of it a bit as a kind of road movie of the suburbs. And also wanting to move on without the emotional baggage of the past. There's a lot of things in this particular family that are kind of handed down. And I think that the two of the characters, Leanne and her sister Bronwyn, I see the point that they get to is where they almost make a kind of a pact or a resolution that they're going to kind of look out for each other and not get caught up in some of the emotional difficulties that have been handed down through the generations of women in their family. So there's that sense of travelling light. And then literally there's kind of light in motion, which I think is very appropriate to a story that's about someone who's really interested in photography and also just noticing light in the world, those everyday kind of moments. I guess the kind of light that I'm particularly interested in this story belongs to all kinds of places, and it's almost like those little moments of awareness in daily life when you see light changes that are to do with something happening, the light on the wall from a curtain, or just little moments where we're struck by the qualities of light in everyday life and cause us to maybe pause and reflect or enjoy or whatever.
I think one of the reasons that Catherine was interested to make a film that was set in the early 70s was that it was a time when the generation gap was quite wide, and so there was a lot for people to fight against, perhaps, more so than now.
And I can promise the politicians, the lawmen, and the churchmen that their institutions will fail.
You think you could put on a tie?
I think the same sorts of challenges are in front of people. I mean, everyone has to make those decisions about what am I going to do with my life, how, it's time for me to make my own choices and not those of my parents. And I think those things resonate just as much with people today.
Well, soon I'll have two daughters who've graduated from the Teachers' College. Bronwyn and Leanne will be able to support their father in his old age. How was your prac teaching, Leanne?
I can't imagine it going any better.
There's a very strong sense of wanting to break free.
Come with us. We're gonna take you away.
Deciding to change your life is perhaps the hardest point, and that once you do it, it's easy. It's doing it that's easy, it's deciding to do it that's hard.
Bronwyn tells me you're thinking of getting into photography. Professionally, that is.
Mm.
Isn't it a bit insecure?
I don't know.
Yes, some of Leanne's experiences are mine, but some of the other characters' experiences are mine as well. It probably started off thinking about that character. I confess I was a trainee teacher for a short period and was absolutely hopeless at it and hid in the darkroom.
Yeah, okay, I'll be teaching you a bit about photography. Taking pictures. I liked the idea that this was a story specifically about a woman whose life was perhaps challenged because she was a woman.
Blue for hair.
I think I had Pia in mind for Leanne for a reasonable amount of time before the production came together. At about third draft of the script, I had a kind of brief, just a couple of days workshop of the script with some actors and a kind of reading for kind of key collaborators, including my script editor and so on. And I just really enjoyed working with Pia. I thought she had an incredible kind of warmth that she would bring to the character. I was really impressed with her work on screen, her sense of comic timing, her understanding of the character and so on.
Yeah. I thought I might lose it a bit earlier, maybe if Leanne takes it.
We worked out a lot of stuff that's not in the text about how close they were prior to all the stuff that's going on, and I helped Sasha understand what it's like to have a sister because I have an older sister and she's an only child. So, you know, it was really nice creating that bond and just working out their relationship and where they are now. And I think there are times with siblings where you're close and then times when you separate and you come back together. But there's, for me, having a sister, there's that sense of security that they're always there no matter what goes on between the two of you.
When we were kids, do you remember you and me and Gary used to dress up? Out on the back lawn? I had the fairy costume, you know, with the wings made out of netting and the old coat hanger. Sometimes I long to climb up on that roof and just jump. I think that it's a very generous thing that her character does for her sister. She's quite young and she puts a hand out and says, you know, I know you've gone off and got married and we've got very different lives, but I'm not going to let you go. I'm not going to let you kill yourself or drift into a depression or a funk that you can never get out of. You can break circuits. Off. 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 Off.
Everything's off.
Thank you, everyone. Tonight, we're proud to present another milestone in Australian television, our end-of-season special, live from Channel 8 Studios.
I suppose I thought 1971 almost feels like an era before the modern world. It feels like before things changed. Just the fact that it's before colour television, for example.
I hung out at Channel 9 Studios for throughout the rehearsal period for a couple of days and just watched how it was all floor managed and got to do some floor managing of my own for one of their infomercials, which was great fun. They kind of let me take over for a little while, a bit scary.
I think that all of the characters are dealing with change in some way. The younger characters absolutely embrace for change. It just can't happen fast enough for them, particularly Leanne and Deborah and people. Other characters in the film, like her parents and even to some degree Bronwyn, I think deal with change much more reluctantly. I guess there was this idea that there was this whole kind of canvas of people of different age groups, 2 generations. I think the story is much more told from the viewpoint of the younger characters, but nevertheless I was attempting to be sympathetic to the older characters. And I think for Mrs. Ferris, just to accept a glass of beer at the end of the story is really quite a significant move.
The first scene, even of the film, you see that there's this woman who's kind of afraid of electricity, and then she's afraid of going out, and then you know, she becomes a few scenes later a woman who suffers with agoraphobia, and then you realise that she's a woman who would actually rather lie down than be standing up a lot of the time. She's a woman who, in a way, wants to avoid life rather than be in it.
Dawn, I feel faint.
You're all right, love. Just relax.
It's my heart, it's pounding.
Leanne's relationship with Mrs. Ferris is very much a mother-daughter relationship in the fact that I feel that Leanne might be the mother at lots of times, at certain times. Can I get you anything, Mum?
No, I'm fine, thanks, love.
Leanne isn't quite sure how weird her mother is yet because she hasn't really gone out into the world, and I think she won't really notice until she's about 28 and go, that's not quite normal. Mum's not quite right.
I like to use colour in a really nuanced kind of way, in subtle kind of ways, I suppose. And I just find cinema an incredibly expressive medium. And in this film, I guess a lot of the time we're using quite a restrained colour palette.
Catherine's very, very interested in colour. I mean, when I first read the script, there's numerous references to not so much times of day, but particular colours in the entire project, from yellow a yellow light pouring out of a fridge for a self-portrait to, you know, ambers, blues. The biggest thing we didn't want with 1971, which is the main period of film, was it to be too diffuse. Was it to be too much like a dream, too much like a really happy memory. And we saw it as more, you know, pastel kind of past, a pastel kind of history.
Catherine was interested in using directional light that was soft, not hard-edged, and using a background, a colour palette background that was also soft and pastel-y. Even if the colours were different, they were kind of pastel. So you've got this soft light against soft colours. And, you know, that does a number of things. It really foregrounds the drama. It allows the actors' costumes to possibly be some of the strongest colour elements in the film.
Would you like a hot drink, love?
Where's that husband of yours?
He's at home.
The Yellow Rooster off the White House, which is Bronwyn and Brian, their whole house and their clothes were fairly controlled, fairly monochromatic, fairly pale, because it's meant to be like a red dust landscape. We sort of wanted to put them into an environment where it kind of felt not unstable but temporary, and that it wasn't kind of grounded, like they were sort of floating in that environment. The art department, you know, started to ask me, you know, what is it about all of these fridges and television sets? Because, I mean, virtually all of our locations have television sets. They all have fridges. There's always some kind of action around the fridges. There are a lot of electrical appliances. Our concept in terms of her character here is that, you know, she's still living at home because she's studying, so she's kind of like halfway between all of her childhood kind of stuff and then into all of her sort of photography and that sort of thing. But it's just that kind of meshing together of the hangover of childhood things and the oncoming of, like, you know, her incense that she's into, her music, the photography that she's really into.
We're about to take a journey into higher consciousness, and you're planning to take snapshots along the way?
They're not snapshots, they're a form of psychological research.
The most intense colour is reserved for Leanne's self-portraits. And so I think colour is more about the future and imagining yourself. And therefore she decides to photograph herself in a rather surrealist fashion, you know, naked in front of the fridge holding a fish or something, or looking into a mirror, Friedlander style, kind of composing herself in a series of expressions suitable to a young artist. Those moments are in colour, more intense colour.
I'm not a big tracking, craning kind of guy. I like to tell stories in frames, you know, I'm just not that type.
Line check.
And this particular film is, Lou is very freeform. You know, the character of Lou the Big Poet's very freeform, very like the camera will wander because there's people want, you know, this guy's different. We decided to move on Bronwyn's story, move the camera a little bit always kind of into Bronwyn because we just wanted to do this very intense drama that she was going through, very personal tragedies, you know. And we were trying to just kind of get in her head a little more, bring the audience in. Whereas I guess more accurately with the Ferris family itself, we sort of just sat back to watch, you know, basically in a lot of wide shots. They sort of, you know, tell it themselves.
It's probably overstating it somewhat, but they're kind of half dead, these people, you know. The suburban life has just snuffed something out in them, you know, and trivial things assume great importance to it, you know.
You don't think Leanne's run off for good, do you?
Oh, I doubt it, love. She's taken a camera, but not much else.
The more I hear about it, the more I realise that Australia in 1971 was sort of chronically insecure and thought that anything interesting in the world happened somewhere else, not in Australia, and that they were particularly vulnerable to being in awe of America and everything American.
Well, tonight, viewers, all of us here at The Tonight Show are proud to bring you a bit of culture. A controversial American, Mr. Lou Bernetti, will be joining us later as our special guest.
I'm quite interested in gurus as well, I suppose, the idea of any people who are kind of charismatic and have a certain conviction that causes other people to be interested in them or to kind of be influenced by them. So I think that people give Lou this enormous kind of kudos and authority, because he seems to have a kind of broader experience of the world and what might be possible.
Who are you asking?
Well, I've pretty much been confined to cheesecloth shirts, and I have not changed my jeans once in the 6 weeks. And these thongs, I'm going to have big trouble letting them go. Yeah, I was really happy with Lou's look. I kind of, when we had tried stuff on in pre-production, again, as soon as I got the kind of stuff on and just looked in the mirror and went, oh, okay, so maybe you can play this mentor kind of character.
Lou represents freedom and change and all those things that Leanne craves.
Bum another cat for bread. Let's get away from it all.
Catherine knows exactly what she wants, but she's also able to take on a huge amount of information. She's able to take on the vagaries of the weather, of the hours that we've got in the day, of what happens on a film set, and capitalise on it in any way she can, which I think is something that makes her a very good director.
Okay, before we start, we've got something very special for you tonight. A sneak preview of my film clip. And this is dedicated to my lovely fiancée, Dee.
Girl on my mind, and there ain't no place to go to.
I think Catherine looks back at that period with a mixture of nostalgia and horror, really. It is, in some ways. It's the best and worst time of your life, and I think that is something that you can see once you get a few years ahead of that. You can look back and realise that, you know, you were struggling, you were so uncertain about so many things, but on the other hand, you were so free.